Whoops.
I want you to take me back home.
This is AI spotting poachers to help save endangered species. This is AI on Intel.
Hey, welcome to our Gallery Bergen virtual live stream. This is the opening of our animation, art, and motion exhibition, and we are very happy to be bringing this to you live this evening. We have three amazing interviews tonight. We have interviews with Aggressive TV's Alex Topaler and Dan Shapiro, our own Francis Schmidt, and with Stephen Gonzalez from the gaming department. Along with that, we have some special music videos by some of our music students, including some of the music that you were just hearing prior to the live stream beginning. That was a piece by Christopher Selman from the music department. We'll also be hearing again from some of our favorites, Divinity Montijo and Daniel Lepata. They have another merge video they're going to show us, and we also have a new presentation tonight from Ginny Lackey, a piece that she's done. So we're going to mix that in with some of the videos, and we're going to get started in just a second. I just wanted to just briefly introduce this exhibition. This was a plot that Francis Schmidt and I hatched. Neither one of us are big fans of the concept of a virtual gallery where you only show like two-dimensional artwork. It's a little hard to present paintings on a 3-inch by 5-inch screen and have any kind of real experience of having seen artwork. It's a very, very truncated experience. So we were trying to think of an exhibition that we could present online that was made for online, that could really be shown well. And we thought that animation, 3D modeling, VR, CGI, those were the things that actually were made by computers for computers and to be seen in this way. And I think that we've been able to put together incredible show, and it is drawn from BCC alumni. For teachers, this is as good as it gets. We are able to bring back students who have sat in the chairs that now our current students are sitting in our labs, the computer labs in West Hall. And these people that we're going to be seeing and hearing from this evening and that are showing their work on our virtual gallery website are at the top of their industry now. And they got their start with folks like Francis and Greg Bierman. And we couldn't be more proud of them, and we're grateful to them for coming back and sharing their work with us. Just to go through the list again, we have in this show, we have Aggressive TV's Alex Topaler and Dan Shapiro, Clotilda McHugh, who is now in France, Ali Jamali, Alec Gelman, Stephen Gonzalez, and Christian Dobrev. That's our collection of artists, and they show all of them spent their time, did their wood shedding and their graphic design experience, and sharpened their axes in the labs at BCC, and we're going to be showing some of their work this evening. We all grow up, or most of us, I guess, grow up, my generation, we grew up with cartoons, and it's one of those things that is just never been taken seriously as art. I was just taking a look at our Art 101 textbook this evening because I couldn't recall anything in our textbook that even remotely referenced animation, except I think there were 3 sentences about Walt Disney Studio, maybe a mention of Pixar and George Lucas, and that was about it. And the fine art world likes to maintain it's really a conceit, it's a fiction that artists, real artists, true artists don't mess with technology. This is, it's like the goddesses bless you and kiss you with these incredible creative gifts, and it all comes down through your soul and manifests, in only through things that are made by the hand, and only the hand, and with the paintbrush and the pencil. It's just not true. It's every artist in the history of the world has used the best technology available. And I would urge you, if you don't believe me, you could take a look at some of the wonderful videos that David Hockney has made about artists like Caravaggio and Jan van Eyck, who used lenses, camera obscura, even possibly chemicals to freeze light onto a surface to be able to do the kinds of renderings that they did. The evidence is there. I think Hockney makes a great case for this, but it just makes sense. If Caravaggio had Maya, he'd use it. It's like you want to use the best paints, you want to use the best brushes, you want to use the best tools. The art is in part engineering, and with the artists that we have here that we're going to show and you're going to see this evening, they bring incredible skills to the table, incredible inventiveness, a work ethic like no other, and they are artists with a capital A. And I'm going to introduce you now to an interview that I conducted with Aggressive TV's Alex Topaler and Dan Shapiro. If you haven't seen their work yet on their website, you can go to aggressive.tv. That's their website. There is an incredible amount there. These guys, they work at the highest level of advertising, music video. They do everything. They are working at the absolute forefront of technological innovation, which you will see in this interview in a video that they have just done with XR mapping technology. They've just done with Alicia Keys. That's not too shabby. Alicia Keys, they've done work for Michael Jackson. They're doing work for Intel, you name it. So I'm going to start this interview, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. These guys are really something. I want to just thank you both for being a part of this, and so pleased to have you at least talk about your experiences at Bergen. And congratulations to you also on your careers and what you've been accomplishing.
Thank you.
I have to admit, I was not able to tune into the Alicia Keys premiere last night, so of course all those videos have been already taken down. So I wasn't able to see any of that, but I'm hoping we'll be able to get some links up and get people to be able to see your most recent work. Do you want to talk about that since that's the most recent thing? And do you want to describe your project?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure.
Um,
So,
I think, well, go
yeah,
ahead.
you wanna go ahead? So what we did actually just yesterday, on the 18th, we premiered a performance of Alicia Keys. It's to launch her new album, Alicia, and it played on the American Express Unstaged platform. It's actually the first. Unstaged is a concert series that Amex has been doing for many years now, but they actually haven't done one now for some time. And Alicia she's the first artist that they're kind of coming back with. So yeah, and we directed, art directed and produced the performance. And the performance, it's given these times we're in, it's a virtual performance. It's an XR set map performance, which means that Alicia and her whole band are performing on an LED stage, surrounded by these animated graphics that we've created for her, and surrounded by these virtual CG worlds that we've created for her.
Yes, it's incredibly exciting because essentially it's an hour-long show.
Wow.
But what makes it particularly exciting is that while it's essentially a live performance, it all took place in this virtual real-time environment, and the environment itself is made using a combination of LED technology combined with augmented reality, and all programmed in real time. So what you're seeing is really not a green screen. Or VFX. It's all actually done 100% in camera and live.
Yeah, and it's really this is kind of we're at the forefront of this technology, and it's kind of developing every single day. But one of the things that makes this so cool is that it's these our cameras, the cameras we're using to film the performance, are also being tracked in real time, which means that we can take the position of every camera and feed it live into the computer, into the animation system, which in this case we're using software called Notch and D3. And what that does, it basically ensures that no matter where our cameras are, our backgrounds are also skewing in perspective to create a perfect illusion of depth, as though you're actually there in the space. And that's something very exciting, and it's actually fairly new.
Now, the performers here, they are all together, or are they being filmed virtually and separately, or how?
They're all together. They're all together.
They're okay. I see.
It's a little hard to it's a little hard to explain. I mean, essentially what you're looking at is a box made out of LED screens.
Wow.
And the performers and the musical instrument and this one chair, the oversized chair in the back, they're all standing on an LED floor surrounded by LED walls. A real-time CG program is then being used to project these environments and feed them into the LEDs. But since it's in real time, the camera angles of the LEDs are being tracked simultaneously by our cameras. And so when the cameras are swinging and moving up and down, an illusion of perspective and parallax is being created. But really what this is an LED box with a whole bunch of screens.
That's amazing.
And then to make it even more complicated, there's also a layer of augmented reality that's being added on the sides to extend the box, right? So if you look closely, you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer, but
yes,
you can see that right here, that's where the real LED box stops, right around here. And when the layer of this augmented reality is being, incorporated into the film.
that's amazing. That's amazing. And to think that you learned all of that at Bergen Community College is just that's
It was just two excellent classes, and then we were done. It was,
and that
you
you
know,
all and you owe it all to Francis Schmidt. And so
exactly.
well, that's amazing. That's
Well, I mean, I look with you know, it's a, I think it's a great memory for me to look back at my time in Bergen, and I was taking the classes with Francis, which I thought was excellent. I think the most important thing for me was the fact that Francis had some real life experience as a VFX supervisor and as a CG supervisor, a couple of really high profile projects, and just beyond the material that we're learning, I think kind of listen to him talk about the industry and some of the things that you encounter when you're in it, and I think that was, to me, were very useful, and it definitely served as a, you know, as a bit of a step up into where I was back then in my career. So getting kind of like the inside scoop from Francis for me was you know, was a big deal, and really helped me along, actually.
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Bergen, I didn't take any design courses, but I did take music production and you know, electronic music with Professor Mazurek, who has since passed. But you know, and honestly, those are some of my best memories. I also took fine art courses there that I think have also helped me tremendously as far as, you know, just being able to visualize my ideas and sketch, you know, storyboard and sketch things out. But especially those, you know, especially those music production courses and the electronic music, was able to, you know, we got our start in music videos, Alex and I. We've directed upwards of 30 music videos. We've, you know, somehow managed to win a Grammy Award at some point, you know, and as well, just the tight integration of, you know, music and being able to visualize it in a timeline and being able to manipulate it and work with it as it, like, laid against visuals, I think was something that, you know, I kind of, you know, got the seeds from that class, and that really kind of laid a foundation for the understanding of composition and just the dynamics of audio and visual. So yeah, it's
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
well, I'm definitely going to feed this directly to my Art 101 classes, you know, where a lot of the questions are, what the hell am I doing here? And am I ever going to need this anyway? So that's, I try and explain to them sometimes, maybe with greater or lesser degrees of success, that there are a lot of places that this will become useful to them in the future.
And oddly enough, I guess also just speaking about some of the classes I've taken, actually, one of the most influential classes I've taken was with Professor Solomon. It was just it was intro to anthropology, which you know, I guess while we ended up you know, doing this, actually I majored in evolutionary anthropology as a result of that class.
Oh, how cool!
And
He's
you
still
know,
teaching, by the way. He's still the same
please,
class. Yes,
I love Professor
Theo's
that's
still
amazing.
going at it.
I would love to come in and sit in on the class again. It'd be amazing to see him again. You know, and I always remember that he said a quote, and I'm probably, you know, mangling it, but he basically said that, you know, the only thing you need to be happy in life is to read and to travel.
That's true.
And, you know, and
I remember it
fortunately,
really well. I really took that advice to heart, actually. So.
Exactly. And, you know, wherever, I guess, like, we're lucky that this, you know, this work has kind of taken us to many places. We've been to China, we've been to Argentina, we've worked in Eastern Europe and all over, in Warsaw, everywhere. And, you know, I always think back to that, because that's always that wanderlust that I want to go travel somewhere and see something, because that really kind of became a philosophy of mine. So
that's fantastic. So I see that you, Alex, I think you were wandering through or scrolling through a list of pieces that you've got in your catalog. There is, do you want to just select on some particular favorites, the ones that you that you're most proud of?
Yeah, you know, we've done a lot. I mean, it's really hard to pick one thing. I can also just give you a brief history of how it all worked out. If that's interesting. But let's see what we can take a look at. Dan, do you have one that you like the most?
I thought the Intel one, the AI one, was
okay.
Sure, we can look at that.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, we just did a new project for them. They changed their entire branding and redid the logo, which I don't know about that. But we just launched their new chip. But this is not this job. This is a little bit older. So here we did 5 different videos to kind of showcase the various capabilities and the various partners that Intel teams up with. This is actually one that's being used to catch poachers in Africa and all around the globe. So
I hope that's all that it's being used for, just poachers,
well,
right?
it is. You know, this technology is actually really, really,
I mean, it
really
would have
cool.
no
Yeah,
other collateral uses, I'm sure, right? So-
Yeah.
so-
No, but it's
but
really
this is
cool
the
actually
selling
because,
point.
well, I mean, the camera is about this big, and you can
Mm.
basically take it and they throw it onto, you know, they could put it on a bush or a tree somewhere in you know, in the savannah,
Right.
and it'll work for a year
Uh-huh.
without updates of battery, and it's constantly recording, and it can tell using artificial intelligence the movement of a poacher versus the movement of a tourist versus the movement of animals. So it's really very exciting.
That's amazing.
You know, it's funny, our work kind of, you know, Alex and I have been working together for such a long time, and I guess, like, you know, we got our start in design, but we sort of taught ourselves how to do lots of these things. So our work really skews into so many different directions to the point where people are like, wait, you guys did all of this? Because like this kind of work, it falls into this very like high tech, data driven, like it's, you know, very futuristic design. And I guess one of the starts where we kind of got into this style of design was actually for Bloomberg. And I guess the reason being is that they would come to us with these assignments that were actually incredibly dry. It's like, let's talk about our financial platform, you know, and I guess, you know, it was one of those interesting challenges where even though the assignment at face value is like incredibly boring to start out with, at least to be able to represent it, you know, that was the challenge of how can you make this sexy and how can you make it cool? And I mean, you really can if you kind of like dig in.
So you mentioned that there were 5 different videos that went into that.
Yeah.
yes, that's the ones that I'm showing you. I'm just kind of going through them right now, and each one highlights a different partner that relies on the Intel technology.
I see.
And how it kind of works. And so, you know, if you listen to the sound, it sort of like explains how, I think this one specifically is Taboola, which is more of a search engine type of a partner that functions with Intel. So there was one with Philips, which was more medical. That's the one we just watched. This one is actually called Ziva, which they use in Hollywood to bring a lot of the bigger monsters to life, like things like Pacific Rim and a variety of these like sort of like bigger and more complex animals. And so there's a big part of Intel playing that. And so we kind of worked on this as well. And you know, we did everything, which is nice because we're sort of like cross disciplinary in a sense where, you know, a lot of the work is very CG and VFX driven, but at the same time, we also shoot quite a lot of live action. And so, you know, not only have we, you know, modeled and designed all of this, but we also kind of like created all the live action bits and pieces.
That's amazing.
This partner, I believe it's a very specialized smart chair that uses facial recognition to help people who are quite, you know, who are completely unable to move their bodies to move the chair using their, you know, they move their face. And so it allows them to actually drive by smiling or by, you know, moving their eyes and whatnot. So this was fun, you know, so all this was designed and created digitally, but then we also had a lot of fun shooting it. So the bit of the poachers we shot just outside of LA. You can see some behind the scenes production pictures here, and all of these guys are artists. It was very fun to do because when we're posting pictures about it online and sending them back to our friends who did not know that we were in California, they thought, hey, you should be careful out there, and all of this stuff.
Right, little did they know, right?
Yeah, little did they know that we were just outside of LA in a place that's called the Savannah Tree, because quite a lot of this kind of stuff is shot there just because it has that look.
Well, I have a question. If you are a student sitting in Francis's class and you want to do what you guys are doing, what great advice, sage wisdom would you offer to students that want to be you guys in 10 years?
I mean, you know, I think the main thing that I would say that, like, at least I learned, you know, through it sounds like we're just starting out, but we're not. Like, it's funny because we've been doing this for a moment, and life is going by really fast. But I think it's not an immediate thing. It's essentially if you enter this kind of a creative field where you're making music videos or commercials, or if you want to do film, you have to maybe look at yourself as an infantryman in a way where you're every day you're trying to gain a little bit more. So you meet some people and it opens one door, and then that door opens another door, and you learn a new technique and new skill, and sometimes you do a lot of stuff that's not particularly glamorous, but each one of these is one more step forward. And so it's never the case where you do something and then somebody calls you and offers you, $10 million. It's always one small step at a time, and you're basically advancing and getting, a couple of inches of new land every day. But as long as you're doing it and you don't stop, then at some point things do tend to click. And sometimes you do something very small, and then 3 years later, somebody comes back and says, hey, I've seen this thing you've done 3 years ago. Could you work on this? And so the cycles of the industry are much longer than you tend to think. And so it's important to just not stop and just keep going, because the second you stop, it's over.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't know, like, you can do a project now that, is frustrating, and maybe like you have some difficult people you're working with or something like that. But yeah, you just have to stick with it, and you always, make it as good as you can make it. And you don't know, maybe, years down the line, that one job will suddenly open the door to something else. And at the same time, just go into even if you, I guess, even if something seems like it's challenging, try to do it. If you don't do it, then nothing happens. But if you try to do it, then at least you have a shot. And you can always, you can learn, and you can teach yourself often, as, in the course of it as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we always do, we always say yes. Like, we'll say, yeah, well, did you do this? Yeah, of course we can do this. And we have no idea how we're going to do it. And then we just try to figure it out, because the fear of getting sued is a lot greater. And so, so we always say, yes, of course, we've done it many times without having any idea how to do anything. And so we always figure it out, and sometimes it always works out. And, it's always like this with any kind of new technology or any kind of a new type of a project. We're always freaking out and quite scared. But, if you utilize that fear and you can channel it,
sure,
and then you can really make something great and open some new doors for yourself. Yeah.
So one part of that would be work ethic, but then the other part of it is also then knowing who to ask and then where to go to find out, well, how the hell do you do this? And is there which do you think is more important? Or are they equally important? Or I think some folks have the idea that it's just all about your connections and you just get lucky. And
there's no such thing as connect. I mean, obviously, at some point you start knowing enough people, and it's very easy to pick up your phone. But even in production, we have this saying when we're judging producers or we're judging people that we hire. We say, I'd like for him to go beyond his phone. And so, there's always somebody that you haven't met that might know something. And so it's really important to just be ready to talk to people and get as much information as possible. If you don't know something, you can always reach out and ask people. I think I've learned that I can pretty much email anybody as long as I can find their email online, and they tend to respond.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
if you're not successful or in the field, you might email, and 100 people are not going to respond, but number 101 might respond and say something. To give you an example, the way it worked out, Dan and I at some point decided that we want to make music videos. We were looking. That's how we got into the industry. We decided that we make a little bit of animation together, and we want to work on something cool. And we started looking for job offers on Craigslist, I believe. And there was a job offer. It was like 2004, I might say, or like something like that. There was a job that was posted looking for a 3D animator for a music video. And so I applied, and they said, yes, definitely, please come. And, I had a very questionable portfolio and set of pieces to show them at that point. But they said, could you do that? Because they had some kind of a huge problem and everything was burning. And I said, yes, of course. I've done it many times. I was completely lying about this.
Good advice.
Yes.
Sage advice. Pay attention.
Yeah, lie as much as possible. So
just get your foot in the door and then figure it out.
That's the main thing. Yeah.
That's the main thing. So I came in there, and it was a small collective that was making music videos out of Brooklyn. We were not directing back then. We were just animators. We worked on them on a couple of jobs, and then it kind of dawned on us. And then I brought Dan in, and we freelanced there together. I was still going to Bergen. I was half my time was spent in classes, half my time was spent working there, and I didn't really know what I was doing in either of those environments, really. And at some point, we've seen that these guys are making music videos, and we thought, I mean, it doesn't look like that complicated because they're just shooting musicians on green screen, and we're doing all the animation. So how hard is it really to shoot somebody singing against the green screen? Seems like they're doing all the cool stuff and we're doing all the dirty work and all the complicated visual effects back at their office. And so Dan and I decided to leave and start our own company and make our own visual effects. And they laughed at us and they said that, like they thought that we were crazy and they laughed at us and we left. And then we bought this book and it was called, I believe, like Los Angeles, like 411 or I don't know, like one of those like directory fat phone books that list all the production companies in LA. And we were sitting at Dan's parents' house and we basically sent an email or maybe even a letter to every single production company whose address we could find. Literally, we just spammed Los Angeles. Hey, we did VFX on like 2 music videos and now we want to direct by ourselves. And, and obviously nobody replied to us from probably like 2,000 people that we sent letters to. But there was one person that did reply out of these 2,000. And, he ran a small production company that was horrible and he was a horrible person. But sometimes to get your foot in the door, you usually are being called and by not the best people in the world.
Sure.
And that allowed us, through this contact, we were able to make our very first music video, which was extremely low budget. And, we didn't have the right equipment and it was crazy, but it gave us that portfolio piece. And then we took that portfolio piece and again, we emailed everybody in the world in Los Angeles and UK and everybody whose phone number and email we could find got email from me and Dan back in 2003.
And demo reels too. We spent nights and nights in FedEx. I mean, we designed our own website. We designed our own demo reels. We filmed our friends in the basement to make a little extra, like, idents and promos that were animated. I mean, we tried to fill out as much as we could to make ourselves look like even slightly resemble someone that they want to work with. And then we just mailed everybody over and over again.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So at some point after you write to about 3,000 people, usually the 3,000 first person answers and says, "Oh, that's interesting. Let me talk to you about something." And so
by the time you guys maybe look at it as like trying to create some kind of fiction to present to prospective employers, but in the in the actual building of that. So you just did this piece with Alicia Keys. Is there anything in the pipeline that's coming up that we should be watching for that you're able to talk about, or are you still in the NDA phase of some of these things? But is there anything else?
It went really well, and it was sponsored by American Express, and so American Express already told us that they want to do more of these, and so hopefully there's going to be more of these performances coming out, hopefully featuring some exciting artists as well. So we're kind of getting ready for this. And then, we're finishing some design work for Google. We're working on a project for the American Petroleum Institute. We're in the process of starting a job for Pantene. So there's always a bunch of cool stuff coming out there.
Cool. Well, that's great. I want to thank you both so much for being a part of this, and this has been a just fascinating journey for us here, and I'm so grateful for your time. And Bergen Community College is obviously really proud of you guys, and we look forward to seeing you on campus when we're able to open back up. And in the meantime, then we'll start on this masterclass thing. I think that's really great direction. I'm so glad you stepped up to the plate like that.
Okay, sounds
good. Okay, great.
Thank you very much. This is a lot of fun, and thank you for your time and for considering us.
Yeah, sorry if we sometimes get off topic. Once you get somebody talking about themselves, they can't shut up. It's a problem that both of us have. So
great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Great. Nice to meet you.
All right, good to meet you.
Bye.
Those guys are so awesome. we had the best time with that interview. That's actually a little bit edited down. If you want to see a full version of this, you can go to the BCC Animation.com website and the longer version is there, and there's a little bit more about some of the backstory of how they got started. It's very much worth checking out. I don't even know what to say. I was just watching the chat bar, and I could say it looks like we lost about half the audience. I think half of Francis's students, I think, have just gone back to the woodshed and they're starting to work on their animation stuff. I think people were uber inspired. So it's been bad for my audience, but very good for the program, it looks like. I thought maybe it'd be time for some music. I thought maybe we would put up Divinity Montijo and Daniel Lipata. They have a new merge video, and this is a cover of a song that, man, I remember from my high school days. So, man, they're digging back into the treasure trove here, going way back. But this is Dancing in the Moonlight.
When that moon is big and bright, it's a supernatural delight. Everybody dancing in the moonlight. Everybody here is out of sight. They don't bark and they don't bite. They keep things loose, they keep it tight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight. We like our fun and we never fight. You can't dance and stay uptight. It's a supernatural delight. Everybody was dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight. We're getting almost every night. When that moon is big and bright, it's a supernatural delight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight. Everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Everybody's dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight, dancing in the moonlight.
That was terrific. That was so well done. And it looks like there was 4 different versions of Daniel there. That was just beautiful. Divinity, you sing so well. Daniel, you've got some great chops on. Looked like 4 different instruments there. Really, really well done. Man, we're all so proud of you guys. I thought it would be time to watch some cartoons. Man, I love cartoons, especially things about roadkill. And this next cartoon that we are going to be watching is by Andrew Gelman and another BCC alumni. This was a cartoon pilot that he did for a TV show. that won an award at the Hoboken Film Festival 2019 for best pilot for an animation. So we're going to watch some cartoons. I'm not going to show the entire cartoon because it's a full-length pilot, but you can also check this out. It's also on the website, so you can see the whole thing. Get your PJs on, have some cereal and some cold milk, sit on the floor, put it on the big screen and watch cartoons just like the old days.
Whoops. Hello? What is this place? Smells fancy.
Don't you get it, moron? We're dead. Oh, that whole disaster's on you, by the way. Seriously, Maz, who sleepwalks onto a highway?
Relax. Think about it. If we were responsible for all those deaths, would we really be here right now?
I'm more pancaked than squirrel because of you. Don't tell me to relax.
People love pancakes. So just turn that frown upside down and... Actually, I think your frown may already be upside down. Your whole face sorta got jumbled around down there. Ugh.
They say when you die, you're supposed to feel an overwhelming sense of peace and calm. They lied.
Or perhaps you're not fully dead. Take a seat, my sons, and allow me to explain. I am Animal God. Look upon me and know me. You have nothing to fear. From the tiniest insects to the mightiest dinosaurs, and everything in between, all wildlife are created in my perfect image.
You're God? You? Don't take this the wrong way, oh mighty thing, but no way. Nuh-uh.
It is true, my son. Look around you. Beyond that gate lies animal heaven.
See? What'd I tell ya? Animal heaven, here I come. It's time for this rotting raccoon to finally catch some Z's. Zobo? God? I'll be in heaven if anyone needs me.
I don't think so. Maz the raccoon, Zobo the squirrel. You are directly responsible for the death of 600 lives. I cannot possibly allow either of you to enter heaven.
I'll handle this. Look, clearly there's been some confusion regarding today's incident. Allow me to explain what really happened. He did it!
The pancake lies, your majesty. Take him away.
Silence! There's only one simple rule all animals must follow in order to reach heaven. Don't kill people! I'm sorry, but you're just not getting in at this time.
At this time?
Yes, you see, there actually is a bit of good news for you both. Congratulations! You're not banned.
We're not? What's the catch?
No catch. The catastrophic series of events you triggered was completely accidental. That means neither of you had any intent to hurt anyone, and that means we can't mark it against you.
So we can go to heaven.
Don't be ridiculous. You killed hundreds of people.
So we can't get into heaven. We don't deserve to go to hell. What exactly are we supposed to do?
You ended 600 lives today. As penalty, you will live out the rest of your days suffering for all eternity, wandering the earth as spoiled flesh and bone. If even in your decrepit states, you could somehow manage to save 600 new souls from their demise.
That's just a teaser. That's just a taste. If you want to find out how it ends, you got to go to the website. That's bccanimation.com. The whole cartoon is there. So make sure you get up there and take a look at that. That's Andrew Gelman, Roadkill Rangers. And we're going to move to another BCC alum. This is a music video by Clotilda McHugh. The story about Clotilda is that she told me is that she was an ESL student. She comes from France. She was studying ESL at Bergen and was in West Hall and happened by the animation lab where Greg Bierman was teaching at the time. And Greg, in his easygoing way, saw her peeking into the door, and he sort of came to the doorway and he said to her, you can come in. So she did, and I guess that is the beginning of her career. And she's now doing I think sort of a split personality. Her creative side does music videos for technical progressive death metal bands, and then she's also doing sort of high-level graphic art and design for the French government. So she's got both things going on. And this is a music video that she did for a band called Spasmophiliac, and the name of this video is Noon XOXO Dark.
about this?
I don't know what it is. Teddy bears just never seem to do well in these videos. It's never a good ending for a teddy bear in music videos, from my experience. The next thing that we have up, I'm going to be showing you another interview, and this is again another edited down version, a shorter version of an interview that I did with our own Professor Francis Schmidt, who is at the center of this wonderful program that many of you are a part of, and he will be going through some of the works that are shown by the contributors to this show and talking about them and giving a little bit of their backstory and his experience of working with them. Again, there's a longer version that I'll be putting up on the website if you're interested in theories of teaching and things like that. I took some of that stuff out. But this interview, I think, will be of interest to you, and you'll be able to see some of the insight that he has in how some of these folks got their start at BCC, and I think it'll be inspiring.
I believe, and I believe this from going back to when I was an undergrad, that the environment is actually probably a lot more important than the classes. Mm-hmm. That you need to build a space where all these things are, mm-hmm. people can get access to them, right. And then people will go to it and use it, and they'll kind of work with each other, uh-huh. And you'll get, I hate to use the term synergies because it's such a, uh-huh. Term, but that idea of just making a creative environment where you can work, I think is far more important than what class you take or what you get out of it, right, or what, right. What we're going to cover or what software we use or hardware.
Sure. I thought maybe what we could do is maybe I'll share my screen, and if you want to maybe comment a little bit, and I can pause the video, and then you can maybe say some things, and then I'll splice it up maybe as we go through. Does that make sense?
That's fine. Yeah.
I like. Let's start with Christian. It's such an interesting story.
This is not bad. The painting.
Yeah, this is beautiful actually. Because this shows some of the process. So I'm going to play this, and
Christian always has this very dark kind of H.R. Geiger aesthetic, and I don't think he even realizes he has it. It's funny, like I've seen him working on things that are like, multi-layered caves with like faces and things coming out of them and people running through them in 2 dimensions. And I don't think he realizes it's all part of the same theme. That it's all it's dark, it's almost abstract. A lot of it's very sci-fi orientated, but it's really impressive work. I think there's something deeper in it for him. I don't know that he knows what that is. I don't know, but I think it all does. All of Christian's work connects together in an interesting way. That's always been my feelings.
And now he's a third-year nursing student in the Arctic.
In the Arctic, yes. Yes, he changes paths. He's very sincere in what he pursues. I mean, there's no question about that.
Very much so. No, he's
yeah. This the space and the like kind of this you know, it's funny. I don't think he thinks any of those particular movies are great or anything, like Aliens or anything like that. But his work is so involved with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was some of the VR stuff too. That worked as something you could fly through in virtual reality. And the amount of detail for one guy putting it all together is just unreal. Like that's
staggering.
Yeah.
Staggering.
We had a funny on this piece because the thing about the game engine is you have to put gravity in it. You don't have to, but I mean, you have it so things fall, and we were trying to figure out where's it coming from, and he was never that clear about it. Yeah, it's amazing work.
He made this at BCC, or is this from FIT?
I think this is his FIT, what he graduated with.
I think so.
Yeah, which they used in several demos because it's such a.
Yeah, there it is.
You know,
yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a stunning piece.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Let's go back up and let's try. How about Andrew Gelman? This is it's a piece that has a sense of humor to it.
Yes. Always drawing characters, and they were like interesting characters. The only book I remember telling them. Because he had all the material to do a TV show, and he did a TV show.
I believe he showed this pilot at the Hoboken Film Festival in 2019.
It's a great piece. It's amazing when you think he's one person who can produce this. I mean, it's sort of the opposite of what I was saying earlier, that idea of that one person's vision. But this really is his vision very much. Another friend of mine, another graduate, tried to push him to make sure that he kept it the way he wanted to keep it. And it really does read like a good cartoon. The idea of animal heaven is also very funny too, an animal god.
Yes, this is a really twisted piece, and I really like it.
Yes, yes.
Let's see. We'll talk. Actually, Ali Ashgar Jamali added a couple of pieces that he didn't originally include, but this is his demo reel, which is really strong.
Yeah. He's really something. He went from, sort of student who didn't care that much to someone who's producing the highest level commercial work imaginable. I mean, like, I hate to be that, the term would be that, shucks about it, but it really is a very good example of what the community college can do.
Mm-hmm.
That you could take people who probably never liked any of their K through 12, and then they can find something that just maybe they do like, and maybe they can latch on to it and be really successful. And that's LE, certainly.
Yeah, there's some really sophisticated work here for some important companies as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he's working at the highest levels of the advertising industry, which that's what New York City is,
Yeah, this was a great piece too.
Yes.
And I actually like this one very much. The
this drawing. Yeah, that's interesting.
So you're seeing some of this stuff for the first time too, probably.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I am. I used to work on stuff like this. I mean, at a slightly different way. Like I did film restoration, then I used to do effects in ads. It's funny. A lot of what I did was fixes. The funny thing about fixes is nobody's supposed to know you did them. So
this is a piece he just sent me for Google.
this isn't even released yet, is it?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think
This is their ad for setting up Zoom conferencing. It's a complete kit for doing what we're doing now.
Wow. Wow. It's actually really interesting. Huh.
So he was the lighting, did the lighting, and was the generalist on this piece.
It's impressive. And I mean, especially because that, you know, Google's interest is in using the computers to make the technology better. And this seems to be all about that.
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
And so then you would need to have somebody who can show that in this way to convince.
Get it done on time and get it done looking good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a really impressive piece.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think this is his latest work, actually.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. The power over Ethernet is interesting because it means you don't have to run a separate power cable, which makes it even easier to wire it. That's just a technical thing, but I had no idea Google was releasing this.
Well, now you know.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
And let's try now. This was actually one of my favorites.
Okay.
This is Clotilde McHugh, who's now in France.
Yep.
And she is into progressive technical death metal.
Yes.
And,
yeah, she loves metal. That's true.
and it's you kind of lose quite a bit by not hearing the sound on this, but it'd be really tough to talk over this one.
Oh yeah, no. It's you know, she also has a very recognizable style. Like, what's funny about it is this is clearly her creative work. I can tell, like, this kind of dark, grungy, goth style thing. Though the work she does now, which is very professional, is all like high-end graphic design work for the French government. You know what else what's amazing about Clotilde is she lived on her own, and you just don't encounter many people, you know. And I mean, she was 17 or 18, spoke more French than she spoke English, and she moved to West New York, if I remember right, because she would go where she could get apartments cheaply.
Well, she tells the story in her bio on the website that she was taking ESL classes at Bergen and happened to be in West Hall and peeked in on Greg Bierman's animation class, and Greg told her, you know, you can come in, and the rest is history, as they say. She came in and never left.
You see, thank God we have these resources, right? Thank God the state of New Jersey pays us to animate.
I like the little censored piece over there.
You know what, Clotilde thing, which is interesting, is the masks. Like, this is the first time I've looked at this piece, but a lot of her work has masks covering faces.
Mm-hmm. She repeats that. That's something that you'll see in several of her videos, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I would read deeper into it, but
like the little cat over the shoulder there. That's a.
Yes, actually, that's funny. Puppets are a thing. She did some really amazing motion animation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Even here, she's very talented.
And let's see, we could pick any number of things from Alex and Dan's work. They're really quite something. I did it.
Yes. They are.
I'm not going to show the Michael Jackson because that may get us shut down on the
copyright issue, right?
but we can do, let's see. We'll show, this one is a piece that they did for Intel.
Know something about Alex Davis, really high level After Effects artists. Like, they can produce photorealistic scenes in After Effects from just like elements they have lying around on hard drives. And I gotta say, they although this is much more story based than a lot of what, like, I'm used to them being very stunning technologically, but I didn't catch the whole, like, there's a narrative that's interesting, and I know they'd like to pursue that. I mean, there's an interesting path where you can go from very high-end ads to movies, but it's not easy, but I think they want to try and do it.
They said they filmed this in California. There's a place in California that is often used to mimic the African savanna, but they brought actors out there.
See, I think they have like, there's several directors. I mean, you could go back as far as like Altman started out doing ads. And of course, Michael Cimino, who did Deer Hunter, was the top ad guy for a long time. So there's a path to it. It's just, it's a very, because again, if you're, one other thing about ads, and I don't know if they talked about this, but ads pay more than anything. And it's hard work because there's a lot of people behind you who would take the job, but it's the most profitable work you can get. So if you want to say, well, I'm going to take 6 months or a year and risk making a movie and losing all my money versus these high-end commercial things, it's a hard decision to make, though it's one I think that they're leaning towards. But
right. Well, I want you to take a look. I don't know if you've seen this one yet. This is the project they just completed with American Express, called Unstage. This was the first one of the series that I believe American Express has asked them to continue. It's called Unstage, Alicia Keys. And with this, they're using an LED XR set mapping.
Using virtual sets, I think, right? Yeah.
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 And so there are basically 4 sides of the stage are LED screens, floor, walls, ceiling. And that is then projected onto they project these environments onto those LED screens.
A robotic camera probably to make the camera so that they can track everything together.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, their embrace of modern technologies is really something. I mean, they're really stretching the limits of what you can do with these things. And that's good. That's what you should be doing. You know, I bet Alex was in a class because I used to use this quote by Trent Reznor, which I really like. He was talking about how he only makes interesting sounds when the machines are just about to crash, and that you're really only using your machines if you're pushing them to the absolute limit, which means they should be crashing.
Exactly.
That's a good sign. If they're not crashing,
That's a good sign.
You're not pushing them.
Not pushing the limits. Exactly.
That's right. And
just like a race car driver.
Absolutely, 9/10. You got to be way out there on the edge.
That's right. You got to be.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of our faculty members. This is Stefan Gonzalez, and he's produced some amazing work. And I learned so much from talking with him about game design, which actually just completely blew me away. So this is a homage that he did for one of his favorite games,
Final Fantasy. Stefan knows more about games than anybody else I know.
So just the detail of this just absolutely took my breath away. And again, this is just a one person. This is just him doing all of the level design, all of the modeling.
You know, there's a fascinating, I think it's sort of fascinating. Stefan is from DR, and when he was a kid, he was born in Washington Heights when Washington Heights was really bad, and he couldn't go out. So he stayed in and played video games. And we're talking about when he's like, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so like he really lived in a place where it was unsafe at that time.
Mm-hmm.
By the time his parents moved to New Jersey, which is I think when he's like 12 or 13, he had been so enmeshed in video games, he really wanted to learn how to make them. We didn't have a program to do it. That's why he ended up in animation. But he kept pursuing, how do you make video games?
Well, he talks about that in the interview I did with him, which also he describes his search for after he left BCC to find a place where he could continue to learn how to make video games. And it took him out to Vancouver because there were like 2 programs in the continental Americas where they were doing anything close to what he wanted to learn.
That's right.
And we're lucky to have him on the faculty now.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, our students are sort of at like, the crux of all modern culture.
Yeah.
Like they're international. They have access to the latest platforms, the latest games. They communicate with people from all over the world. We should have the tools to help them be able to do that. But that means we have to keep up with it. And truthfully, I can't. I try. That's why it's good that there are people who are interested in it and really want to share it just as much as we do.
Well, you can tell if you listen to him talk about it, his passion for this.
Yeah.
It had me hooked. I may be just a little too old to go through all the learning curves it would take to be able to do this, but what was so impressive was learning about all the different elements that are brought to bear in game design, which have to do with everything as basic and fundamental as storyboarding, creating narratives, to then the really hard work of creating these detailed environments in 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, time-based,
right.
And then giving the freedom to be able to have live players interacting in real time in these environments. It's just levels of complexity beyond what I'm capable of imagining. That's for sure. But it's
an interesting thing about it to me, Tim, is there's still, like, we talk a lot about that even with stuff exactly like this, where there's VR, there's augmented reality, there's what Dan and Alex are doing, XR, I guess.
Yes, XR set mapping.
And all these technologies, one of them might be, the next feature film or the next television.
Right.
Or they might not be.
Right.
And the only way we find out is by playing with them and seeing.
Right. Well, he tells that to his students. If you want to be a game designer, he says, and I think this would probably come as a deep disappointment to these people, is that you have to play a lot of games. That's what he said. He leans into the camera and says very earnestly, you have to play a lot of games.
He's right.
And he's right.
It's funny. You even knew, like, from IT, we still get weird resistance, like when we have to buy a laptop and it has to be able to, like, play games, and they get really upset. So like, no, it's like, but it's a gaming program. It's supposed to do that. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to put yourself in a place to get the technology, but then you also have to fight against, like, the currents that are there that say, oh no, that's never going to become anything, and nobody will ever use XR, and maybe they won't, but if they do, I always bring up something like in my own background, which is that when I was in college, I thought rap was a fad. Like, I really did. And I was into hardcore, but I thought rap would come and go. And I was wrong. I was just straight out wrong. And I admit that freely. And I'm glad that I can say, look, I got that 100% wrong. It's a genre. It's bigger than a genre.
Yes, it is. Yes.
But if you don't, like, give it the time of day and try it, you'll never know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got quite a bit here for. Did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I got everybody.
It's a good show.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I think it's a really good sampling too of what the different elements are of the program and what students are able to get the rudiments they're able to develop and how they're
Yeah.
able to move forward. And I think you're right. I think that the part of the lesson is certainly not just learning the software, which, that's like if you want to learn how to play the saxophone, you have to practice your scales and there's stuff you have to do to make that happen. But just also like becoming a great musician, you have to be around other really good players that push you and that you can model, that you can then aspire to be like, and have a sense also. It's helpful to know that if you're playing in a band, that somebody who used to play, whose chair you're now occupying, is now the lead alto player for the Duke Ellington Orchestra. So then to know that you can, you put in the time you woodshed, you put in your time on your axe, and then you can get there as well. And I think it's really helpful for students to understand that they're in the stages of making a life for themselves, and that this is the stuff that you do. This is what artists do. This is what you do. You struggle for it.
I think I could say with all of those artists that I tried to impart to all of them that they should come back. Because I think it's really important for the students now seeing people who wow, look at that. They're at the top of their field, but they're in the exact same seat you're sitting in right now.
Yeah. There's nothing like that as a lesson, as a life lesson. There's nothing like that. Yeah.
So you build the environment, build the studio.
Build the environment. Exactly. Well, I think you've built a great environment, and
thank you. And I'm glad you can be part of it and join us.
I'm very proud to be so. Well, thank you so much, Francis. This has been a real pleasure, and I'm really grateful for your time. And I love talking to Francis. It's one of my favorite people to converse with about just about everything in the world. And I know I said it once before, but I think those of you, actually those of us, I would count myself as a student in this regard as well. Those of us who are able to study with him and benefit from both his knowledge, but also his expansive heart, his willingness to pull us along on this ride is really something, is really inspiring, and I'm grateful to him as a colleague, and I know that you all are in really, really good, capable hands. I love what he had to say about creating an environment, and I think that's what most good teachers strive to do, is to create a community of scholars, in other fields, a community of artists, of a sense of that we're all in this together. We're all trying to push the field forward, and that it can come from anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a student or a teacher. We all help each other learn. We all bring different things to the table, different experiences, and we can all help each other make it happen. So this has been a wonderful education for me doing this show, and has really broadened my own outlook about time-based art, and deepened my appreciation for the engineering and the artistic skill that goes into all of this kind of work. And I applaud all of you who are a part of this. We're going to have an interview coming up with Steven Gonzalez. Some of you know him. He's a professor of gaming and is also a BCC alumni. Before we do that, I promised you that we're going to have some more music. And we have a new video from another BCC student, Ginny Lackey, and she is going to be performing her piece called Chameleon. So I hope you enjoy.
Between love
Good, googly moogly. Ginny can sing and she can write. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing from her in some important venues in the future. That was really something. That was really something. Man, you all are so talented. And speaking of talent, I'm going to cue up this interview that I have here with Stephen Gonzalez. And again, this is another interesting story. Stephen, as he'll tell you in this interview, started at BCC. He was looking for a gaming program, and don't ever take this stuff for granted, because when he was looking for a gaming program, there were like 2 in the country. In fact, one of them wasn't in the country. We're talking about the Americas. There were 2 places that taught game design. And he went out and chased programs because this is what he wanted to do. And now he's come back, and one of his biggest aspirations is just to stay and teach gaming at BCC. So I'm going to play this interview for you, and I know this is going to continue to hit all the right spots, so enjoy. First, Stephen, let me thank you so much for being here and for being a part of this exhibition. We really would love to feature and champion our animation program and the game program that you're now a part of. And you're a BCC graduate, so could you talk about what you studied and what you learned here at BCC? What got you started, and what were your aims and goals for yourself when you came here as a student?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, that was during the time when the game industry was going through, I guess, a bit of a renaissance. It was making that transition from 2D to 3D gaming. And there were a lot of games during that time that were really making a lot of buzz and really making a lot of waves within the industry, as the game industry started to grow past that point of just being like this little niche thing and started to becoming like this general, everybody kind of sort of does it now. And during that time, I was pretty certain that I wanted to be involved in that industry. I wanted to pursue creating games. And so from out of high school, I went and tried to look to see if there were any colleges at the time that actually had a curriculum in game design. And unfortunately, there were none. So during my heyday, I had to sort of like just go with the flow kind of thing. And I thought, well, you can't make a video game without graphics, right? So maybe I should go into like 2D or 3D animation or something like that. And so then I went and pursued my dream of being a game designer by pursuing an education at Bergen Community College with an associate's in applied science for computer animation. That's where I met Francis. And so I just did as much as I could to learn like the timelines and frames and modeling stuff, polygons and vertices and edges, and all sorts of craziness. And yeah, it was a huge fun experience. And I tried to sort of tailor that towards gaming as much as I could. So yeah.
What was the moment when, as a gamer, and I have to admit, full disclosure, I think except for one lost summer where I spent way too much time when I should have been working killing skeletons and monsters on Diablo, I think that may be my only experience with gaming whatsoever. So I'm really coming at this as a complete novice. So, but I'm wondering, what was the moment when you were younger and you decided, I could create a game like this. I could do this. How would I go about that? What I need to learn? Was there a particular game you were playing that led you to that aha moment? I could do this.
I guess you could say, yeah. So one of the things about video games is that we've certainly evolved and gotten past just the high score kind of thing, right? And so video games have now become a great platform for storytelling. And a lot of games have really great stories in which me as the player am an active participant in that story. I get to participate and influence that story. My decisions can change the outcomes of how things unfold within the story. And that way, in that sense, it's not just a piece of media that I just sit there and takes me by the hand and it guides me to where it wants me to be, or what shows me what it wants me to see. You know, I get to be the master of that story. And so that's why, for me anyway, the game that did it for me was a game called Final Fantasy. And I always wanted to create a game that tells a story. And so Final Fantasy was my introduction to a game telling that story of just this grand adventure. And, it stuck with me. And I've always wanted to make a game like that ever since. And so I guess in a way, Final Fantasy has a huge influence in my desire to create a story-driven narrative game with role play elements and stuff like that. So I guess, yeah, that would definitely be the starting point of all that.
Oh, that's so cool. So why don't we take a look at some of the things that you've worked on in the past, and maybe you can then show us what you're working on now. Um, you have you've got this project called Junio. Is that something you'd like to tell us about?
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely.
Let me-
So Juneau was a passion project. It's a city that is from the game Final Fantasy XI Online. It's an MMORPG, a massive multiplayer online role-playing game in which you control a character of your creation, and you get to explore a virtual world with thousands of other players, and you join together in parties or groups to overcome challenges and deadly monsters. And one of the areas in that game is a fantasy city that is literally in the middle of an ocean, called Juneau. And it was it was a place that I spent a lot of time in because it was sort of kind of like considered like the hub for the players in that game. It's where you went to go to the auction house to buy armor and gear and spells and stuff like that to enhance your character. And a lot of people went here to like advertise, oh, we're going to be going into this dungeon, or we're going to be killing this monster, anybody want to join us, and stuff like that. So it's a very lively city in the game, and it was very central to the Final Fantasy XI experience for a very long time. But the game is old. It came out in 2001 in Japan and then 2002 in the United States. And so the graphics haven't aged well. It looks really, really old and crude. So I decided, with basically all the training and the skills that I've learned over the years, to pay homage to the Final Fantasy XI Juneau City that I remember so fondly spending so much time in my youth, that I decided to recreate it using the Unreal Engine 4 game engine with current generation graphics. And this is the result to that.
So this is your character. He's moving his way through your set and your immersive sort of design. So this is, all of these graphics are ones that you've constructed and built with the software you were describing.
Correct. So like the character in itself, the blue cyan
Uh-huh.
character that looks like a dummy, that's actually just provided from by the game engine as
Uh-huh.
like a test character so that you can, if you create a third person game like
Uh-huh.
this, you'll be able to just quickly just test the environment.
Mhm.
But everything else in just regards of the sheer environment, down to the plants that you see, to the textures on the floor and the walls, to the 3D models that populate the scene, even the lights, I created all of it from scratch.
It's amazing. Well, I was really struck by the lighting, especially the veracity of the shadows, and everything is just really spot on. The reflections, it's unbelievably detailed and nuanced in the way you've constructed this, and it's really compelling, actually. This is not like
Yeah,
It's not like Diablo.
yeah, it took me a good 4.5 months to make all of this, and that was because I had to keep my Final Fantasy 11 subscription active so that I could visit the city to get the reference material that I needed and make sure everything was to scale
Hmm.
and that everything was as close to the original as possible in terms of architecture, uh, spacing, placement, and just the whole entire like 9 yards. Now, the original Juno, if you ever do like a Google search of this city,
Mhm.
that city doesn't look anything remotely to what you're seeing right now. It looks like it's like comparing like PlayStation to an Atari. You know, it's like the graphics back then just were not that great, but when we were playing them, we thought they were great.
Sure, of course, of course.
um, so yeah, this is a huge facelift. It looks amazing as it does because of the tools and the and all the enhancements and upgrades that have happened in game engines over the decades. And yeah, so it looks as great as it does
It's
because
awesome.
just technology has evolved.
So what software do you use? What programs did you use to create this?
Well, I used quite a handful. I used
Mhm.
Unreal Engine, which is the game engine that this is running
Mhm.
on. I used Modo 3D modeling, which is the 3D modeling software that we use at Bergen Community College to do the 3D models and the UV editing. I used Bitmap to Material
Mhm.
as well as Substance Designer to create some of the textures.
Mm.
I used World Machine to create the mountains in the background so that they look like mountains.
Oh, wow.
It's a program that generates height maps. Uh, and I used speed trees to create the plants.
Wow. So actually, I have to say, I had no idea there were all these specific softwares just devoted to the creation of these particular 3D elements. Um, that's extraordinary.
Yep.
Well, it's
It was
beautiful. Do you feel
it was a
like
lot of work.
you've captured the vibe of Juno itself, even though you say the graphics are completely different, obviously, and massively upgraded? Does it have the same feel that it had for you as a player?
Well, to answer that question, uh, that was something I even asked myself, like, does this capture the magic that was Juno?
Mm.
And the answer to that question is, unfortunately, I no longer play Final Fantasy 11, but I do now still play Final Fantasy 14.
Hmm.
And a lot of the players there used to play Final Fantasy 11, and I happen to be friends with some of those players.
So you've
And
showed this to them?
I showed this to
Uh-huh.
them, and they were just absolutely floored. They were like, "Wow, holy crap, that's amazing! Are you gonna build the rest of the game?" I'm like, "No."
Well, typically those games are created by whole teams of people, I'm assuming, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
The
Yes.
whole collaboration with
Yeah, it's
multiple
very
multiple folks.
Yeah, it's very common for a game like this to take years to create.
Wow.
Often 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 6 years.
Hmm.
And going beyond that, there are games that have been in development for 10 years. A little term in the game industry called development hell, because something either happens where the people developing the game aren't coming to agreement, or there's something going on with the higher ups, or
Hmm.
something with the project got defunded, or a bunch of nonsense happens, and it can really slow down the game and ultimately affect the quality of the game. And some people usually get really upset because certain things get cut or whatever.
Sure, sure.
um, but yeah, it does take an extreme amount of effort from a lot of talented individuals, because it
Sure.
takes a lot to make a game, right?
Sure, of
You have
course.
programmers who program the functions to the game. You have level designers like myself who create the
Hmm.
environments. You have sound artists who create sound effects and music for the game. You have 3D modelers and animators, special effects artists, the whole nine yards. There's just so many individual talents that making a game seemingly on your own is almost an impossibility,
Yeah, yeah.
unless you can do pretty much all of those things
Hmm.
in a broad sense, like be able to just have certain skills
Sure.
in that whole entire range of skill sets and be able to do it.
Well, this is awesome. Would you like to show us what you're working on now?
Yeah, sure.
Uh, would you like to show us what you're working on now?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I went from Bergen Community College to Vancouver Film School,
Oh, wow.
which is located in British Columbia, Canada. So I had to go a quarter of the world that way to the
Uh-huh.
west.
What led you
uh,
out there? What was it in particular about Vancouver that attracted you?
so Vancouver in particular, the reason why I went to VFS was during that time, after I graduated Bergen Community College in 2004, there were
Hmm.
still no schools that had game design
Hmm.
as a course. There they were starting to crop up, and and I swear to you, because I did extensive research, I could fit the number of colleges and universities around
Hmm.
the world that had a game design curriculum.
Uh-huh.
There were 7, just 7.
Wow.
This is a game that I'm working on with a team of 4 other people, and the people on my team are a programmer, a architecture, a 3D modeler and animator, and a UI artist who creates user interface graphics. So I'm on the team as a level designer. So I create the levels and the environments that you're seeing in front of you. These things here are placeholders. I created the particle effects. These mushrooms were 3D modeled by a 3D modeler. And this is one area of our cave that I'm going to be working on later. This dirt mound here is going to be carved into like a tunnel that leads into another section of the cave. Here's what I'm going to be doing today. But this is actually just a fragment of what we're really working on. And this is actually the entire project area here. So our entire game takes place on this island. And if I sort of zoom in over here, this is kind of like what the game looks like. And the first area that I developed was this forest area here, where we have these trees here, and we have like a village populated by these deer folk.
I was going to
So
say, are those llamas? But then I saw that they have
they are,
hands.
they have hands. Yeah, our game is fantasy based, and we also have our main character in here. So if I hit the play button, I can walk around as our character.
It's a turnip.
Yeah, it's like a little mushroom guy, and he can sort of roll, wee, to sort of get around. And so here's our little deer guy. If I press E, they say hello. And so our world is pretty massive. It's going to be an open world action platformer game where you can use various skills to explore the world. And the point of the game is to recover the main character's memories, to retouch with their lost ancient civilization, to return back home with them.
So it's sort of like a mushroom / turnip based version of Jason Bourne.
Kind of, sort of. I guess if we had to put it that way. But yeah, it's
feel free to use that if you need to pitch this. I'll help however I can.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be a massive world. Exploring is going to be a huge part of it because we want to have a nice, pretty world to explore, and so this is where our current focus is inside the game. So yeah, so I'm going to be carving this out, and hopefully we'll have some more updates on the mushroom houses. So we actually have a Discord channel with some of the concept art for this game, and I can share that on my screen as well. So you can see the process on how these ideas are coming up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where's some of your source material coming from? What's your inspiration for this?
Right, so we have an actual game design document, and the game design document sort of holds all the information of the stuff that we come up with. So we'll usually talk on Discord on a voice chat like this, and we'll start discussing ideas and agreeing on those ideas, and then whatever we agree on makes it into the game design document. So sometimes we'll take like pictures of food. You'll see like ridiculous things like this, but this is the stuff that sort of inspires the design of the mushrooms.
Oh, sure.
We have concept art for how the housing of the mushroom areas are going to look like. The character, what we want them to feel. We have map designs for how the cave will be. We have all sorts of interesting concepts that we explore, and we even look at other games for inspiration as well. So if we scroll up here a little further, here we have like a screenshot from Skyrim, because we were fooling around with the idea of having a user interface that's similar to it. So in this screenshot, we'll see like UI elements, like that's what the mouse pointer would look like, and the compass, and other things that would appear on the screen. We have flow charts that dictate how the screens are moving depending on what buttons you press. We have earlier concepts of the video game. We have, let's see here, some early concept arts over here of things that we're wanting to do for our maps. Here's like the tree, and there's the deer that you saw with the hands. It's over here. And here's the concept art of that deer, which is not finished. There's supposed to be like plants and like leaves and stuff like that that grow out of the deer and stuff like that. It's supposed to be like a forest creature. But so just keep in mind what you're seeing is very early development. We're still building stuff. The mushroom area is going to have like these mushroom people that you can talk with and interact with, and they float around and stuff like that in the mushroom cave.
Well, it's unbelievably imaginative, and what strikes me is that you were educated in a film school in Vancouver. It's the only reference points I have for understanding all that goes into making these games would be photography and learning the craft and art of filmmaking, but the game dimension takes it so many steps further, because you're not just creating a film or a background with, and you're not just telling stories, you're trying to create all of the different parameters with which one of the players or multiple players can then sort of recompose, redefine, just tell their own stories within that. And it's the degrees of freedom to be able to make that happen just boggle my mind, to be honest. But it seems to be a very beautifully collaborative process that you're involved in. I'm sure there's lots and lots of areas for conflict in something like this. I'm sure there's lots of
Oh yeah.
screaming and fighting and shouting and Cheetos flying around, and I'm sorry if I'm lapsing into stereotypes about gaming people, but it does seem like a really intricately collaborative process that it would require multiple points of view to be able to create something like this, to be able to anticipate all the degrees of freedom, all the different points of entry and exit, and how everything would move around.
Yeah,
It's mind-boggling. So how are you? You're now teaching this at Bergen Community College, which is, I think, just unbelievably cool. And what are the things that you find yourself reinforcing with your students that want to follow in your footsteps? What are the things that you feel like you most got out of your education as an artist, or maybe as a storyteller? I can imagine it'd be easy to get seduced by the programming parts of it, or to sort of fall in love with the different softwares. But are there things that are more fundamental that you're pointing out to your students and encouraging them to embrace in their early parts of their education?
Yeah, so it's like you said, being a player, it's all about the experience. It's all about creating a world that you seamlessly and unknowingly become immersed to. And you become an active participant of that world. That world becomes your character. And that's why when you see people playing the games that they're playing, they just seem so focused, like everything around them just sort of fades away. And if your game can do that, if your game can pull somebody out of the reality of the real world and for a moment just put them in this grand, beautiful world that's yet to be explored and yet to be experienced, then you've succeeded in creating a great and wonderful game experience that provides a story. And so one thing that I totally try to instill into my students is the knowledge that it's one thing to desire to make a game, and it's one thing to play a game, right? But it's an entirely different animal to actually build the game. And a lot of people come with the misconception that, oh, he gave us 3 weeks to make this project. I'll just do nothing for 2 weeks and like build the project in like 3 days or something. And yeah, they sometimes they fail to realize just how much work it is to build even something, like this, where it's just like you will be at this for days, if not weeks. And that time is absolutely required for you to come out with something that looks good and it's polished and provides that experience that you're trying to shoot for. And so I think a lot of people in my class, there are some who just come to this realization, like, I thought I wanted to make games because I was in love with the idea of creating the game. But then now that I'm actually doing it,
What do you mean?
I
I gotta work at this?
You gotta work at this.
It's supposed to be fun, man.
Yeah, and sometimes I get people who drop the class or like, actually this isn't what I thought it would be, or ultimately I found it annoying, or something like that. But like that's what it is. I mean, the game can't make itself. You gotta put in the time, and yeah, so some people get turned off by that. But in taking my class and going through my rigorous rigmaroles, they arm themselves with the knowledge to be able to feel confident in their ability to build something, right? As in the beginning of the semester, they don't know what's going on. Like an engine, what even is that? Like, 3D models, I don't know how to 3D models, whatever. But at the end of the course, they always feel like, oh wow, you know what? I have the tools, I have the knowledge to build this. And now I know what I have to do. Now I know how to approach the problem, of creating this mega thing that I have in my mind. And I feel that if I can do that as a teacher, if I can take somebody who had absolutely zero hope in making a game and turn that around and make them feel confident, like I can do this, then I know I have done my job as a professor here at Bergen Community College.
That's great. If in your best imagination, if Bergen was able to expand the gaming program, what would be the core elements, the things that you would see that you would want your students within the whole scope of their education? What would be the things that you would want them to focus on that maybe were game related and maybe not game related, but like within the arts or within literature or in writing? Or what would be the things that you would say, if you really want to be a great game designer, these are the things that you should study?
Right. So in order to be a great game designer, one must play many games. So kind of like a chef, right? Like a chef, in order to become a good chef, you have to make a lot of good food, and you have to sort of go outside the box sometimes. And in that same sense, if you want to be a good game designer, you obviously have to have a lot of game experience under your belt, because you got to know what's out there, right?
Sure.
Because if you start making a game and it's just like every other game that's out there, in the whole ocean of games, then you're setting yourself up for failure, because somebody's out there who already has the game that you're thinking of and they do it better, right? So the more games you play, the more you understand where the industry is at as a whole, and where you can go in order to create an experience that will be unique and different enough to stand out on its own merits. And to accomplish that, it's as you say, you need a multitude of different experiences from other forms of practices, whether it be programming, even like in the arts. Art is very important, because video games are art. You need art in order to create the graphics onto the screen and provide those visual experiences that mesmerize and entice people into playing the game. And so you need art skills, you need programming skills, you need, everything like that. And so if I were to try to make the game program here at Bergen Community College even better, I would seek to try to create some sort of collaborative program that brings in the sound students, that brings in the art students, that brings in the information technology people with the programming and stuff. And because it literally takes all that to make a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's how I would improve that. Like I would create a curriculum that, makes you take like a life drawing or an art class. I would create a curriculum that would make you take like the very basics of sound or music design, just so that you can put your toes in there. Because like I said, just focusing on a single point, yeah, you're great at that one thing, but if you can sort of broaden your horizons and be maybe not the best at everything, but at least you understand it and know how, you'll get much more further developing a game than just that one little point.
Right. One thing that strikes me also is we touched on this before, but how collaborative the process is. And I think a lot of my students, when I teach them online or even when we're in face-to-face classes and I give them group projects to do, oh my God, the moaning, the crying, the wailing, the resistance, like, oh God, not a group project. No, I can't do. I hate them. So like unbelievable resistance to that. I try to point out is this is the way the work world is structured now. But this kind of project, and that's really a beautiful scene there, by the way. That's
Oh, thank you.
so cool with the leaves blowing and the modeling of the shadows on the ground. It's really quite beautiful. The collaborative process in game construction seems to be, one of the key aspects to it, because there's just way too much for any one person to possibly do. And to learn how to work in a group of strong-willed creative people, that's a skill all unto itself. So it's there's no way that you could create something as beautiful as this sort of out of one's own head, unless, like as you said, unless you've got 20 years to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. You absolutely need all kinds of people of different skills and creeds to help you make the vision. And you have to be willing to compromise on that vision sometimes in order to get everybody on board. Because, if you take too much ownership in the game, then nobody feels like they have a stake in it.
Right.
And they feel less inclined to participate in the creation.
Absolutely, to contribute. You're absolutely right. Well, we're really lucky to have you at Bergen, and we're proud of everybody who graduates from this college. And it's always, I think, particularly rewarding to see students come back after having completed advanced degrees in other institutions that come back and teach here. And it's so great that you're a part of this faculty, and it's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing this, and thank you for being a part of this show.
Thank you.
That was such a cool interview. I so much enjoyed talking to Stephen, and that I learned so much from him, and the opportunity to study with people of this caliber is just something not to be ever underestimated or taken for granted. We just have a few minutes left. I wanted to just show you some of the work that was done by Stephen's game class. Maybe some of you out there who are watching this are in that course, so maybe you've seen this before, maybe you've made some of these. But I wanted to show you some of the work that his students are doing, and we'll be coming to a close very shortly. But here is some work out of the game class. Well, that's all we have time for. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, for being a part of this. And I particularly want to thank Stephen Gonzalez, Francis Schmidt, and Aggressives, Alex Topaler, and Dan Shapiro. I had such a great time. I had a great time chatting with you all on the sidelines. This was a lot of fun to do. I want to invite you to participate in the next show, which is going up very soon. Actually, in 2 weeks, we're doing our next live stream. I've been working on a show called 20 Big 20, documenting quarantine and protest. So if you have any of your own work, anything at all that you would like to submit to this show, we will put it in. And by work, I mean anything that documents any of your experiences over the last 7 or 8 months of this weirdness that we've been living through. If you've been involved in any of the protests around Black Lives Matter, if you have been documenting any aspects of your life as a healthcare worker or as a service employee or someone, a frontline worker of any kind, or if you've just been documenting your own life in dealing with quarantine. We're accepting pretty much anything that I can put up on a website. So that could include drawings, paintings, photographs, can include videos, music, writing. We're taking creative writing, photographs, I think I mentioned, documents and artifacts, things that you find, take images of. Anything that pertains to that. So I invite you to participate in that. And there are forms online. You can check the Gallery Bergen Facebook page to find the forms to submit work to this. Do it soon so that we can get this stuff up on our website. And again, in 2 weeks on October 22nd, we'll be holding another live stream event, and I hope to have more music from our music students, and we'll be showing the work that the entire Bergen Community College community has submitted. That includes faculty, staff, administration, anybody who's a part of our wider BCC community is invited to participate. So I'm so grateful for everyone to have been a part of this, and so glad to have been able to share this wonderful artwork with everyone, and I hope that you have a great evening and take good care.